Okay, we'll get through this nice and quick, and then you kids have time to work with your partner, whatever you want to do. Again, reminder, the material from this class will be on your little quiz tomorrow, and that one is going to be for marks. Okay, there's 7 questions. Okay. So at the top of, if you're just looking at the image, we have our Constitution at the top, the monarch, who is represented by a lieutenant governor in each province or the governor general in the federal government. Underneath the monarch, you have 3 branches of government. So the legislative branch does what? They make laws. The executive branch, they basically execute those laws. They make them, it's worded funny, but the judicial branch makes sure that the laws don't break your charter rights. Question? What's that? Sure. Okay. Underneath the executive branch, you have prime minister, the cabinet, and the government departments, right? And those are selected by that political party. Judicial branch, right? These are judges. They have the Supreme Court, they have provincial and territorial courts. The legislative branch consists of the Senate and House of Commons. So that's where they debate laws, they ask questions about them. So the federal government controls issues that affect all Canadians, and the provincial government deals with issues for people within a province. Same structures and processes exist for both levels of government. Disputes between the provincial and federal governments are dealt with during premiers' conferences and the creation of an intergovernmental affairs portfolio in both federal and provincial governments. So a riding is a geographical area or political division that sends one elected representative, so a member of parliament, to the government. Okay, so it's ridings. So the political party has to win the most amount of ridings, and they form the government. This means that MPs vote to pass or reject bills. MPs are expected to follow party discipline and vote according to their leaders' wishes. The ruling party must be able to pass bills successfully in order to run Canada. There are some bills, especially budgets and other money bills, that are considered non-confidence votes. Non-confidence, the ruling party cannot get enough support from total MPs in the House of Commons to pass their bills. Non-confidence votes are called when there's a minority government and result in an election. So that's why the Liberal Party right now needs to form a coalition with another party in the House of Commons, because if they vote against one of their bills, there's a vote of non-confidence, there would be a new election and potentially a new prime minister. Okay. The official opposition is the party that wins the second highest number of seats in an election. So based on that image we saw, who is the official opposition? The Liberals are red. Who's blue? The Conservatives. Okay. The role of the opposition party is to work with the ruling party to run Canada, to question the government both in the media and in question period, and to debate bills. This should ensure that the government is being effective and representing all Canadians. Okay. So the next set of the material goes into the 3 branches of the federal government. Okay, so we have the executive branch. So again, you have a governor general. This person just represents the monarch. Okay, there are figurehead duties associated with the monarch. I think it said somewhere that they call the parliament in. They have the right to advise, to encourage, and to warn. Okay, some of the governor general's other duties are opening and closing sessions of parliament and making sure Canada always has a prime minister. Okay. The governor general is also the commander-in-chief of the Canadian forces. First point here, prime minister. To become the prime minister, one must be elected the leader of his or her party. He or she must win the election in his or her riding, and his or her party must win the most seats in the House of Commons. Okay, so there is a process that keeps building up until the House of Commons. There are no limits to the number of terms a prime minister can serve. Okay, so essentially in Canada, that person, that party, they keep going until Canadians decide enough. Okay. And to do that, they'd have to vote differently in the next election. I don't think Canada has a lot of resignations for prime ministers. I feel like this has happened frequently in his time as prime minister. I want to say there's a petition out right now going around to get Trudeau to resign for a variety of things. And anyways, okay, Prime Minister, as head of Canada's government, is responsible for making the sort of everyday decisions that are required to manage the large Canadian government, including decisions involving the hiring of other government officials, assigning projects to various departments of the bureaucracy, and representing the government of Canada in its interaction with provincial and local governments, as well as the governments of other countries. Okay, so this person is really just managing the country. Cabinet ministers belong to the political party in power and are either members of parliament or senators. They are responsible for various portfolios, so they're in charge of different areas the federal government has power over, right? So there's going to be a cabinet minister for, environment, for the defense, for, immigration, all these kind of things. Health, finance, environment, defense, international trade. Okay. Cabinet ministers are also the ones that propose most of the ideas that become law. So together they develop policies and administer the laws, deal with the day-to-day business of running the country, and propose new laws and decide the country's policies and federal matters. Legislative branch includes the Crown, the House of Commons, and the Senate. If you have a highlighter, I see some of you are doing that. Feel free to do that as well. They makes the laws by debating the pros and cons of bills and votes to reject or approve them and amends existing laws. Okay, so the legislative branch really deals with lawmaking and law adjustment. A bill must be voted on 3 times to be approved by the House of Commons, right? So you can't just run an idea through once, have it looked at by a group of people and make it into law. It gets reviewed by 3 different groups of people. So the House of Commons is filled with members of Parliament, or MPs, who are elected by the people. They belong to a political party. Each MP represents voters in one riding, as well as their political party. There are 338 MPs, and each one represents about 100,000 Canadians. You think that makes a lot of sense? One person representing 100,000? Probably not, right? Like, it's tough to go around and meet with 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people to really get an idea of what those 100,000 want. Okay, there's a breakdown as well of how many seats are available. Ontario and Quebec have the most, and together have 199, it looks like, which means that if Quebec and Ontario vote a particular way, it doesn't matter what the rest of Canada votes. Those 2 provinces have enough seats, they have enough people to, fill the House. So the Senate, there's 105 senators. They're appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister. You can stay in office until the age of 75. Does anyone know what the retirement age is? 65, roughly, somewhere around there, 65 or 67. So, hypothetically, a senator could be serving well past a time when other Canadians are told to retire. Okay. How do you feel about 75-year-olds representing, the views of Canadians?
Not very good.
Not very good? Okay. Do you think that age should be reduced?
No.
What would be reasonable?
60.
60? Okay. Do you agree?
Yeah.
60, maybe 65. Do you think that, like, hey, as soon as other Canadians are told to retire, you should also leave as well? Okay. You said no. You think 75 is fine?
Yeah.
How come?
I feel like if you're too young, you won't know enough things.
That's fair. Should there be a minimum age?
30.
Yeah.
You think 30 is enough?
I think 40.
40?
45 maybe.
Keep in mind, kids, I'll be 30 in 3 years.
Mm.
And in 3 years, you'll be going into grade 12. No way, you just... 50. You think 50 should be the minimum wage?
I think 45 is good.
40, 45 is a pretty good age, right?
I just feel like if you're too young, you're not gonna know enough, but if you're too old, you're gonna know too little of what's happening in the brain.
What's another problem with, you know, potentially being too old and representing, not understanding things, literal old age diseases. Speaking of diseases, here's a big issue of being too old and running a government. Are you really going to be around very long? Around 75? What's the average lifespan?
Like 80.
It's like 78. Okay.
I mean, like, look at Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, Trump's not in good health either.
Biden's literally about to die.
Is he actually?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
literally almost, he fell over. There's a whole video,
I
it was
love
so
that video.
funny.
So you're talking like which falling over? Because he's fallen over a number.
Fall down the stairs.
Yeah, well, he was
Recently?
in a presentation.
Not recently.
Like, come on, you're representing America. You better.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, right? Like the person's. Joe Biden's like 77, 78.
He's in the
He's
80s.
too old.
Too old.
Too old.
I thought him, Trump, and then there was another main one. No, Obama can't run anymore, right? Because he had his
He's
terms.
done 2 terms.
Hillary Clinton, I think, is pretty old as well.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Joe Biden was like 80.
Yeah, he's probably close to 80 now, right? So, you know, we agree. Like there are some age that's too much and some that's too young, right? Okay. So the prime minister usually appoints people who support their political party, but since only a few seats are open at one time, the